Okay, we are live.
Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the August meeting of the New York State Joint Commission on Public Ethics. Before we get started, I'd like to read a statement. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope all of you and your families continue to be healthy and safe as the health crisis continues. As in prior months, this meeting is being held using video conferencing technology. The public session is accessible on JCOPE's website to watch via live stream. We anticipate that the Albany office will be open to the public by the end of August to accept filings and other documents. As mentioned previously, some of the JCOPE operations that were paused for the past few months will resume shortly after the Albany office reopens. Announcements will be made and distributed at the appropriate time. We will continue to evaluate the circumstances of the health crisis to determine whether further accommodations are still needed. Please contact the Commission staff if you need assistance. Finally, to conduct this meeting smoothly, I'll do my best to recognize anyone who wishes to speak. It's important that only one person speak at a time, and when not speaking, that you mute your microphone. In addition, I ask that when you speak, you identify yourselves so that we have a clear record. We will need to take votes by roll call to ensure that everyone is counted. Let's move on. Attachment A, approval of the minutes from the June public session. Any questions or comments? I'm not seeing or hearing any. Walt, Martin, Monica, are we good?
It seems we need a motion, though.
Yeah. Can I have a motion, please?
I see McNamara, Commissioner McNamara.
Commissioner McNamara, thank you. Second? Can I have a second, please?
This is Rob Cohen. I'll second.
Thanks, Rob. All in favor? Martin, we need a roll call, I guess.
Yes. On the public minutes, Commissioner Cohen,
Yes.
Commissioner Deering,
Yes.
Commissioner DePiero, Commissioner DePiero. Come back. Commissioner Fisher. Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Jacob. Commissioner Labonte. Judge McCarthy.
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara.
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman.
Yes.
Judge Yates.
Yes. Wait a minute. Yes.
Chair
Did you
Rose.
call my name, Martin? This is Gary.
I did, Commissioner. How do you vote on the minutes?
Yes.
Chair Rosen
Yes.
and Commissioner DePiero. All right, the motion carries.
Okay, thank you. Report from staff. Monica, Martin, who's taking this?
Monica muted.
Monica, you have to unmute.
Can you hear me?
Now.
Yeah, go ahead. Yes, go ahead, Monica.
Sorry. So what I was reminding everyone that financial disclosure statement filings are due on Monday, August 17th. We will be posting the elected officials' financial disclosure statements as we receive them. We expect to receive the legislative filings from the LEC by the end of August, early September. We are still pursuing compliance from candidates in the primary. There are approximately 25 candidates that we are actively pursuing before the election that did not file yet. there are any questions about that, I'll just move on to the Buffalo and New York City office updates. This is about renovations and relocations that have been planned, having nothing to do with COVID-19 response. The Buffalo office is due to be relocated to a new building in the spring of 2021. I believe it will be temporary, but we will keep you posted as we have more information about that. It has been delayed due to COVID-19, but that has been a plan for a while now. In addition, as those of you in New York City know, the New York City office building is under renovation.
And I can't present then.
Hold on. I gotta go.
The lobby in the New York City office building is expected to be open in September. Due to construction delays related to COVID-19, our internal office move in New York City has been delayed from, it was supposed to happen in the spring of 2021. They're now expecting it will happen in August or the fall of 2021. With that, I'll turn it over to Steve Bowen, Director of Administration, for the first quarter financial report. Steve needs to be unmuted.
Steve is unmuted. Steve, can you hear us? Steve was having an issue with his audio, so he couldn't hear you before.
Okay. So the first quarter financial report, if anyone has questions, they can follow up with Steve. My understanding is that in the first quarter, we spent approximately $1.1 million in personal service and about $122,000 in non-personal service. So that is about 22% of our cash for the year. Does anyone have any questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Commissioner Yates.
Were you able to find out if the hiring freeze imposed by the governor prevents us from hiring a replacement executive director for Seth Agata?
We did not make those inquiries. I assume that when the time comes that the hiring freeze will not apply and that that'll be processed. But if you want me to make those inquiries, we can make those inquiries. We did not make them.
No, you can wait if you think it's appropriate. I didn't want to engage in the search and then find out we don't have the money.
We haven't been told that we have any kind of reduction to our personal service fund. So I wouldn't expect that to be the issue. It's probably more about processing it. There have been many appointments that have been going on, even despite the hiring freeze. So like I said, for something as significant as the executive director, I wouldn't expect it to be an issue, but I'm happy to make inquiries now in the next meeting.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions on this?
This is Colleen DePiero. I'm back in. I got knocked off and they wouldn't let me back in, but I'm back in now.
Thank you, Commissioner. Welcome. Monica, keep going.
So then I'll turn it over to Martin. He's going to provide the update on the lobbying regulations.
Okay. Is my audio okay?
Yes.
Great. So after the commission voted last meeting, we published the proposed regulations in the state register on July 14th. The 60-day comment period runs until September 13th. Since the publication, we've continued to engage with stakeholders as well as evaluate the both efficiency and efficacy of the existing regs. We've been looking closely at the provisions that allow coalitions to register as a single entity in order to determine whether that provision of the regulations has been effective and or taken advantage of. Our initial look, and sorry, I mean utilize, not taken advantage of in a pejorative. Our initial look at the data shows that the coalition registration option was seldom used and certainly not in proportion to the amount of staff time and resources and questions that came up through the regulated community. As a result, after discussions internally, we're going to post for an informal comment a segment of the regulations that propose to simplify the coalition model. Essentially, what they would do is take away the coalition filing option and require any members of a coalition to simply disclose all their activities, whether they be individual or coalition related, including their contributions. We think this will simplify the process without creating any sort of meaningful burden, as the option we're removing was infrequently used, we suspect due to its unfortunate complexity. This goes to the comment Commissioner Fisher had last month about, sort of the cost benefit of sort of these complex regulations. We're also considering certain changes to the use of stock as lobbying compensation. Specifically, we're evaluating whether there are additional criteria that can be used to determine whether a proposed compensation arrangement violates the contingent fee prohibition. Depending on how these two sort of interim proposals are received, we may bring changes back to you with the regulations in October. Obviously, if any substantive changes were adopted by the Commission to this or anything else, that would trigger an additional notice and comment period under SAPA. But there's nothing more to act on today. We just wanted to let you know that we're going to float a couple of proposals that we think will both simplify the process and sort of facilitate business development under this question of stock compensation.
May I?
Commissioner Yates, go ahead.
Does that proposed change on coalitions mean that if someone is part of a coalition because they signed on to a group letter or something, but they didn't spend $5,000, that they still would have to register and file?
Let me sort of unwind that. If someone signs on to a coalition letter, for instance, but using that staff time and any other expenditures that they have for lobbying, they don't exceed $5,000, they would not register now, nor would they have before. So there's no change to that, and there's no additional obligation.
Okay.
Other questions? Yes.
George.
Hi, George. Go ahead.
Martin, what are you looking at in terms of the stock compensation? What areas?
I think, George, we're going to drill a little more into the specifics of the lobbying activity. For instance, whether it's procurement or whether it's legislation or whether it's regulation, and evaluate on a case by case whether the type of lobbying creates more or less of a risk of sort of perverse incentives to create a contingent fee. The other thing we're going to look at is the specific size of the entity or the lobbying company that's seeking to pay their lobbyist in stock, and to determine whether that has a more or less likelihood of the lobbying impacting the value of the stock. Finally, we're going to make clear that internal employee compensation that includes stock options, when you have an internal employee who is a in-house lobbyist, that they're not prohibited from receiving the same compensation as any other employee by virtue of being the in-house lobbyist. So we're going to clarify that would not be in and of itself a violation. But it will continue to be a factor-based evaluation, but we would just like to provide a little more flexibility because we found that the factors that we previously enacted didn't really create any sort of avenue to utilize this sort of arrangement. So we're trying to make it somewhat effective if possible.
Thank you very much.
Any other questions? Okay. Hearing none, that concludes the.
May I, Mr. Chairman?
Sure, Gary, go ahead.
Do you intend to report on the confidentiality committee deliberation? And then I have a fellow traveling issue I want to address.
Sure. So regarding the confidentiality committee, staff recently distributed revised materials for the committee's consideration. The committee plans to reconvene in August and hopes to be able to present to the full commission at the next meeting a detailed plan including specific proposals to amend the commission's records access regulations, meeting guidelines, and internal practices. Go ahead, Gary.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman.
You're welcome.
I want to raise an issue that was initially brought to the fore by Ravi Batra, with whom some of us served when he was commissioner. When Commissioner Batra parted company, he asserted that there is, in effect, a two-tier hierarchy of commissioners with respect to information sharing. He dubbed the term super commissioner, which is to say the super commissioners are those who are fully informed. He asserted salient information is withheld from the other commissioners, the others not being gubernatorial appointees. I want to state emphatically, Mr. Chairman, as a matter of law and sound practice, information should not be withheld from any commissioner. There is no need for the confidentiality committee's analysis on this subject. The principle should be self-evident. I want to stress my observations are not directed at staff. They are directed at the governance of the commission, which is our responsibility, not staff's. It is my distinct impression that Commissioner Batra's characterization still is the situation regarding certain matters. If I'm wrong, I'd like to be disabused. However, it's my further impression the rationale has been propounded that certain commissioners cannot be trusted to maintain confidentiality, emanating from those who have opposed pursuing the leak cover-up perpetrated by the Inspector General's office. This rationale couldn't be more ironic. I want to say emphatically, Mr. Chairman, withholding information is fundamentally antithetical to informed discussion and deliberation. It should not be abided. Thank you for letting me express myself.
No problem. Commissioner Weissman.
I'll make it short. I'm just going to second Commissioner Levine's statement. And like Commissioner Levine, I was here from day one. And the notion that some commissioners have more information than others, and then those commissioners, and as Commissioner Levine said, staff has similar information but have been precluded from sharing it, does cause a significant public policy.
So since I'm aware of I think, of what you're both referring to, I'm gonna just say that I do not think it's the case that there are, what did you call them, Gary? Super commissioners?
Yes.
Who have information while others don't. I am aware of certain information that every other commissioner is not. And that is pursuant to discussions that we've all had and delegation and all sorts of other things that we don't need to discuss here in public session. But I'm not aware of any other circumstance. So if there is that, please bring it to my attention privately, and I'll immediately look into that. But I'm not aware of anything else other than that one item that I referred to. So if there is something else, please let me know, but not in public session, obviously.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Not at all.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I have another item I would like to raise, if I may, if I could.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Commissioner Levine.
Let me address our general counsel. This is with respect to the Committee for One New York and Mayor de Blasio. Now, as I understand it, there is a idiosyncrasy in the law by which we have jurisdiction over lobbyists functioning before the City of New York and the office of mayor, but we do not have jurisdiction over the mayor. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. The public officers law, the state public officers law, does not apply to local officials.
And it's my further understanding that jurisdiction over the mayor is with the Conflict of Interest Board, correct?
With respect to ethics provisions, yes.
Now, to the extent that you are aware and can divulge in the public session, has any action been taken by the New York City Conflict of Interest Board with respect to our inquiry, which has demonstrated beyond any doubt whatsoever that there was impropriety in the gift giving to the Committee for One New York by lobbyists? Any action whatsoever emanating from the Conflict of Interest Board?
The Conflict of Interest Board's activities are confidential, so other than what they have made public, I don't have any information about what action they may or may not have taken. They did issue a statement, I believe, relating to their inability to enforce certain advisory opinions, and then they engaged in a rulemaking process to adopt rules to allow them to impose penalties for certain types of violations of law. But if you want to get into more detail on that, I would have to look into it more because I'm not, you know, the city's rules and laws are not something that I focus on regularly.
It is the case, however, is it not, that prior to the commencement of our inquiry into this tawdry situation, that the Conflicts of Interest Board had issued 2 opinions, which should have been perfectly obvious to all the participants, the lobbyists, the mayor, and the mayor's staff, that what they were doing was improper and unethical. Is that not the case, that these opinions were issued?
Commissioner Levine, I can't really discuss this matter and answer your questions in the public session. This relates to,
thank you very much, and I respect confidentiality. Mr. Chairman, let me say at this juncture, I want to reiterate what I said late last year. The mayor's contempt for ethical propriety is reprehensible, and something ought to be done about it. And as has been stated here today, we don't have the jurisdiction to do anything about it. Jurisdiction is with the Conflicts of Interest Board. I strongly urge that our staff contact the Conflicts of Interest Board and ascertain exactly what they intend to do with the results of our findings and report back to us. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner. All right, at this time, we need to enter into executive session. Can I have a motion, please?
I'll move.
Who is that?
Deering.
Thank you, Commissioner. Is there a second?
Commissioner DePiero will second.
Thank you, Commissioner. Martin, we need a roll call.
Sorry, Commissioner Cohen?
Yes.
Commissioner Deering?
Yes.
Commissioner DePiero?
Yes.
Commissioner Fisher?
Yes.
Commissioner Jacob? I see.
Yeah, Martin, did you call my name? This is Gary.
Commissioner Levine? Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Commissioner Jacob was muted. Try him again.
Commissioner Jacob?
Yes.
Commissioner Judge McCarthy?
Yes.
Commissioner McNamara?
Yes.
Commissioner Weissman,
Yes.
Judge Yates,
Yes.
Chair Rosen.
Yes.
Motion to adjourn executive session.
Okay, so the public session is adjourned.
We need.
23rd
We're back on.
Great. Okay, we're back from executive session. Monica, could you please provide a summary of the action we took?
Yes. Sorry, I'm studying my throat. During executive session, we discussed litigation matters. We considered an appeal from the denial of requests for exemption from filing an FDS pursuant to Executive Law 94-9K. We issued an advisory opinion pursuant to Executive Law 94-16. We approved one settlement agreement. We commenced 3 substantial basis investigations, and we authorized steps in several investigative matters, closed one matter, and discussed several other investigative matters.
Great. Thank you. Given the time, is there a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Is there a second? Martin, if you could please do the roll.
To adjourn, Cullen.
Yes. Yes.
Deering.
Yes.
Shapiro.
Yes.
Fisher. Jacob.
Yes.
Levine.
Yes.
McCarthy.
Yes.
McNamara.
Yes.
Weissman.
Yes.
Motion carries. We're adjourned.
Great. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.